Have you ever wondered how the events following Jesus' resurrection could transform your life today? For many, the resurrection marked the end of a story, a powerful conclusion to an incredible journey. Imagine witnessing that moment, the Son of God rising, conquering death, and defying everything the world thought it knew. You might think that the mystery ends there, that nothing more remains to be told. Yet, the impact of this miracle was only beginning to unfold. The days following the resurrection were like a continuation of astounding acts, filled with profound teachings and miracles that would open doors to new ways of experiencing the power of God. The resurrection was not just Christ's victory over death, it was the beginning of a series of events meant to change everything, to transform the hearts of those who doubted, to give purpose to those still searching, and, most importantly, to alter the course of humanity itself. The message of the resurrection remains alive in each of these events. Each of these miracles serves as a reminder that Jesus did not rise just to conquer death, but to bring lasting hope and transformation. Today, we'll explore 5 of these miraculous events, 5 unique encounters that took place after Jesus rose from the dead. Each one not only changed the lives of those early believers, but also holds the power to transform your life today. These events show us that the story of the resurrection is not set in stone nor locked in the past. It is a living story, with a power you can experience in your own life, filling you with faith and hope. The appearance to Mary Magdalene. After the resurrection, one of the first miracles happened when Jesus appeared to Mary Magdalene. In the Gospel of John 20 verses 11 to 18, we see Mary distraught, weeping outside the empty tomb. In her grief, the sight of the empty tomb only deepened her sense of loss and emptiness. But at that very moment, Jesus appeared before her. Initially, Mary didn't recognize him and assumed he was the gardener. Everything changed, however, when he called her by name, Mary. In that instant, her eyes were opened, and she realized she was standing before the risen Jesus, her teacher, who had conquered death. This miracle reveals something profound about the character of Jesus. He draws near to us in our moments of deepest pain and confusion. Mary Magdalene represents everyone who has lost hope, who feels that their life is empty or adrift. Often, when we're trapped in suffering, when our tears cloud our vision, it's precisely at those times that God is closest to us, even when we don't immediately recognize him. Just as Jesus approached Mary in her moment of despair, he also draws near to us during our darkest, most difficult moments. Imagine that scene for a moment. Mary was so consumed by grief that she didn't even recognize the very one she was seeking so desperately. Isn't that sometimes how we respond, too? We get so caught up in our difficulties, so overwhelmed by sadness or worry, that we don't realize God's presence is so much closer than we think. It was only when she heard her name that her heart opened, and she could see Jesus in all his glory. This miracle reminds us that God not only knows our name but calls us personally and intimately because he loves us. We are not alone. Every tear, every fear, every feeling of hopelessness is known to him. So, if today you're going through a difficult time, if you feel there's no way out and wonder if God is really near, remember that he knows your name. He isn't a distant God who merely observes. He is a God who actively seeks you out, even when you feel broken or lost. No matter how dark the path may seem or how alone you feel, God is always willing to reveal himself, especially in moments when we think he is furthest away. Sometimes, the peace, comfort, and answers we long for are closer than we imagine, waiting for us to look up and hear God's voice calling us by name, just as he did with Mary. And just as Jesus appeared to Mary in the midst of her sorrow, his story continued unfolding in yet another unexpected encounter. Before we continue to delve into this content, I kindly ask you to show your support by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and sharing this essential message. The road to Emmaus. One of the most meaningful events after the resurrection was Jesus' encounter with 2 of his disciples on the road to Emmaus, as narrated in Luke 24 verses 13 to 35. The disciples were walking and discussing the recent events, filled with confusion and disappointment, when Jesus joined them, but they did not recognize him. As they walked, he explained the scriptures about himself, unveiling how all the prophecies pointed to his life, death, and resurrection. It was only later, when he broke bread with them at the end of the day, that their eyes were opened, and they realized they were in the presence of the risen Christ. This encounter reminds us that God is present with us in the ordinary moments of life, even when we're unaware of His presence. The disciples on the road to Emmaus were going through a time of doubt and confusion. They felt like everything they had believed in was uncertain. They did not expect to find Jesus in the middle of a simple walk to a nearby village, but it was in that everyday moment that He chose to reveal Himself. How many times are we like these disciples, so preoccupied with our worries, our plans, or our doubts that we don't recognize God walking right beside us? This event invites us to seek God in the ordinary, to slow down and open our eyes to His presence in our daily lives. Sometimes, it is in the simplest of details like a conversation, a meal shared, or a quiet walk that God speaks to us most profoundly. When Jesus broke the bread, something familiar and routine, their eyes were opened, and they saw Him for who He truly was. It reminds us that God is not just with us in extraordinary moments or places. He is there in the ordinary, waiting to reveal Himself in ways we least expect. If you feel like God is distant or hard to find, consider that He may already be walking with you, speaking to you in the day-to-day moments. Ask God to open your eyes, to recognize Him in the midst of your routines, trusting that He is closer than you think. And just as Jesus revealed His identity over a simple meal, He also showed Himself to others in an even more powerful way. Jesus appears to the disciples. Shortly after His resurrection, Jesus appeared to His disciples in a closed room. In John 20 verses 19 to 23, we read that they were gripped by fear, hiding behind locked doors. In that moment of fear and isolation, Jesus suddenly stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." He didn't just offer them peace, He breathed the Holy Spirit upon them, empowering them for the mission they would soon undertake. It was a moment of transformation, as He brought them from fear to faith, from hiding to preparing for their purpose. This miracle offers a perfect image of how Jesus can bring peace, even to the places we think are unreachable. The locked doors of our hearts, our minds, and our lives are no barrier to Him. Just as He entered that room without breaking a single lock, He can step into our lives, no matter how closed off we feel. The peace He offered to His disciples was not the kind of peace the world provides, fleeting and often unreliable. Instead, He gave a peace that transcends fear and withstands any storm. Maybe you felt like those disciples, hiding behind walls of anxiety, fear, or doubt. You may have even shut yourself off, feeling that no one can truly reach you or understand the struggles you're going through. But Jesus shows us that He is able to enter even the most locked, guarded places within us, bringing a peace that nothing else can offer. This peace doesn't require perfect circumstances or a life free from challenges. It is a gift that surpasses our understanding, a peace that transforms and empowers. This encounter also reminds us that Jesus didn't stop at offering peace. He also gave them the Holy Spirit, equipping them to move forward in faith. He took them from a place of fear and equipped them with the strength they needed to fulfill their calling. Today, that same Spirit is available to us, ready to fill us with courage, purpose, and peace that conquers all fear. With this message of peace, Jesus not only comforted His disciples but also addressed the doubts of one of them in an unforgettable way. The doubt of Thomas. In the Gospel of John 20 verses 24 to 29, we find Thomas, one of the disciples, who wasn't present when Jesus appeared to the others. When told of the miraculous encounter, Thomas famously stated that he wouldn't believe until he could see and touch the wounds of Jesus Himself. 1 week later, Jesus appeared again, showing Thomas his wounds and inviting him to touch and believe. It was a compassionate response to Thomas's doubts, one that transformed him from a skeptic into a true believer. Thomas's story reminds us that our doubts don't disqualify us from God's presence. Rather than rebuking Thomas for his disbelief, Jesus responded with understanding, offering exactly what Thomas needed to overcome his uncertainty. This miracle shows us that God isn't afraid of our questions or hesitations. He welcomes us, meeting us where we are, even when we're struggling to trust. Just as Jesus extended His hands to Thomas, He extends His hand to us, inviting us to approach, to question, and ultimately, to believe. So, if you've ever felt that your doubts or questions make you unworthy or distant from God, remember Thomas. Jesus didn't reject him or tell him to come back once he was sure of his faith. Instead, he provided the reassurance Thomas needed, bringing him closer rather than pushing him away. This encounter reminds us that faith isn't about having all the answers from the start. It's a journey, one where Jesus walks alongside us, even in moments of uncertainty. God invites us to come to him with our doubts, our fears, and even our struggles to believe, knowing that he is patient and compassionate. He offers us the space to seek answers and provides his presence as a source of assurance and strength. So no matter how great your doubts may be, remember that Jesus is always reaching out to you, ready to show you that you are seen, understood, and deeply loved. After this powerful encounter with Thomas, Jesus gave his disciples a purpose that would change the world forever. The Great Commission. Before ascending to heaven, Jesus gathered his disciples and gave them his final instruction, the Great Commission, as recorded in Matthew 28 verses 16 to 20. He told them to go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them and teaching them to obey everything he had commanded. This moment was pivotal because Jesus was entrusting them with his message of love and hope, giving them both the authority and the purpose to share it with the world. It was a mission that would transcend time and space, reaching every corner of the earth. The Great Commission wasn't just for the disciples of that time. It is a mission that extends to each of us today. Jesus invites every believer to be a part of this work, reminding us that we don't have to be perfect, nor do we need all the answers. What he asks is that we step forward with the authority he has given us to share his message of hope and love with the world. This is an incredible reminder that God does not call the equipped, he equips the called. Each of us has a role to play in this great mission. Whether it's through small acts of kindness, sharing the gospel with a friend, or making a difference in our communities, Jesus empowers us to spread his message of peace, grace, and salvation. And the beautiful thing is, we don't do it alone. With the Holy Spirit guiding and strengthening us, we are more than capable of fulfilling this calling. Think about it. Jesus trusted his disciples with the most important message in human history. And now, he is entrusting that same message to us. We are his hands and feet in the world, and he empowers us to carry this message of eternal hope to everyone we meet. It's not about being flawless, it's about being faithful. Jesus doesn't need perfect vessels, he needs willing ones. And the power of the resurrection, the ultimate miracle, is what fuels us to go out and live with purpose and courage. No matter where you are in life, you are part of this global mission. God has equipped you with his Spirit and his authority to make a difference in the world, to be a beacon of hope, and to bring others to the saving knowledge of Christ. You don't have to have all the answers or be someone extraordinary to make an impact. You just need to trust in his calling and take the first step in faith. The world is waiting for your message of love and hope. And with this powerful commission, Jesus empowered his disciples, and through them, he empowers each of us to change the world. These 5 miracles after the resurrection not only changed the lives of those who experienced them, but they continue to have a profound impact today. Each one shows us that, even after conquering death, Jesus continues to act, heal, and transform. So, what can we learn from these miracles? What are they inviting us to do today? If any of these events resonated with you, share it in the comments. Tell us how you've seen God work in your life or what area you need prayer for. This is an invitation to share our experiences and create a community that is strengthened in faith and in the power of these miracles. Let's continue to seek wisdom, peace, and understanding together. God bless you and see you next time.